Draymond's value to the Warriors has never been as a scorer. And we could talk about the defense, we can talk about the rebounding, but offensively, his value has never been as a scorer. His value has been as a screener, a facilitator, a ball mover, a playmaker. Those aforementioned 4-on-3s on Steph Curry blitz, that's where Draymond is at his best in the half court on offense, and he hasn't had those opportunities. And we can talk about his points, we can talk about his shooting percentage. Like, I'm disappointed in how much he's fouled. I'm disappointed at times in his defense, but he hasn't been awful on that end, and that's his value. He hasn't been awful rebounding the ball. That's his value. He hasn't been awful as a facilitator, and that's his value. That's where I disagree with you. Tatum, we witnessed, and we've talked about this leap that he's made, right, from star to superstar. He got through Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He got through an epic performance by Giannis. He got through Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. And then we get to the finals, and he has been so bad in the second half. Just bad. 9 for 34 from the field in second half of games. Even worse in the fourth quarter. 4 for 16 in the fourth quarter in these games. For the series, on twos, Stephen A., he's 14 for 51. Like, his inability to just put the ball in the basket. He's shooting less than 50% at the rim in this series. On top of that, the bad Jayson Tatum that I always talk about, the indecisiveness, the poor decision-making, the high turnover games, we've seen that creep in. It has absolutely hurt his team. And when we started this series, I thought it would come down to whose star player has the better series, whose star player can will his team to a championship, Jayson Tatum or Steph Curry. And so far, the answer to that has been unequivocally Steph Curry. Jayson Tatum has not played like the superstar he is, has not played like a superstar in this series.
Well, let me say this. We ain't arguing with that. We know that you're right about that. And we know that you're right about the fact that both of them both Draymond and Jayson Tatum have been flagrantly disappointing. There's no doubt about that. But I remember JJ looking at Jayson Tatum shoot 3 for 17 in game one and still applauded the 13 assist and talked about the fact that there are different ways to beat you. He's averaging 7.8 assists in this series.
But he did have a low turnover game that game as well, and that's what I applauded.
I understand.
That's what I applauded.
No.
13 assists to 2 turnovers. That's what I was applauding.
And
I actually thought his shot selection in that game was pretty good, Stephen A. And I don't think at times the shot selection has been good at all going forward.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, yeah.
But what I'm saying to you is this. I walked into the finals bringing up the fact that I remember before the Miami series was over in the Eastern Conference Finals, he was leading everyone in the playoffs in turnovers with 60, for crying out loud. Jayson Tatum was turning the ball all over the place. And so what I'm saying is that hasn't been as flagrantly obvious in this series. He's averaging less than 4 turnovers a game. Key moments when he doesn't need to be turning the ball over. Certainly he's been a victim of that. He's been poor at the rim, no doubt about it. But he is shooting 45% from three-point range. He is averaging nearly 8 assists per game. And so when I look at it from that perspective, again, I'm not debating anything that you're pointing out in terms of how disappointing he has been, because you got to finish the deal, particularly in the fourth quarter when everybody's talking about you being a top 10 player, even though he himself has admitted, I never was me. I never called myself a superstar. I never said these things about myself. Who said that? We get that. That's us. That's not him. That's putting that on himself. We've speculated about that, and he's come up short in that regard. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at him averaging 22.3 points a game. I'm looking at him shooting 45% from the field, averaging nearly 8 assists per game. And even though it's flagrantly disappointing, I don't think as much as it stands out, the bottom line is we look at Draymond and we're saying, what the hell is this? We definitely expected better, especially when he looks psyched out. And I think it says a lot that when Steve Kerr, again, I didn't make a big deal out of it because I saw what Steve Kerr was doing. He was going small. You put him to the bench, him or Looney in the game as opposed to both of them, because it causes problems for Boston because they like to dribble the ball too damn much at times. And the smaller guys that you put in the lineup, whether it's a Gary Payton Jr. or an Otto Porter, whatever, even though Otto Porter's not that small. And by the way, he's been shooting effectively for them. All his shots have come on three-point shots. Every single shot that Otto Porter has made in this series has been a three-point shot. And he's shooting pretty damn good from about 63% from three-point range. They might want to put him in a game and let him shoot a little bit more too. In the end, when we look at Draymond Green, you do find yourself saying, damn, 17 points and 18 fouls. And let's not forget, Jaylen Brown's been going right at him now. Jaylen Brown's shooting 44% from the field. Jaylen Brown has been attacking Draymond Green. Jaylen Brown has been a headache in his own right, at least at times. We can't ignore that either. So, again, I get what you're saying. I'm not going to disagree with a point that you made about Jayson Tatum. I'm just saying that for me, Draymond's ineffectiveness stands out more.
I understand what you're saying. And I think if the question had been who's had a worse finals performance, I think the answer to that, of course, would be Draymond Green. I guess what I go back to, which I brought up in my point about Draymond Green, is what is your expectation? What is your role, and are you starring in that role? So I don't know where all of a sudden we decided Draymond Green is supposed to be some offensive threat. The guy hasn't been an offensive threat in 3 or 4 years in terms of scoring the basketball.
But I don't think
that's the reality. When I talk about Jayson Tatum, for them to win this series, he's got to be at his best, and he's got to be efficient. What does efficiency look like? Well, it looks like 50-ish% from the field. It looks like 8 or 9 assists with 2 or 3 turnovers. It's not 30% from the field with 5 or 6 or 7 turnovers, which he's had in a couple games. Like, that, to me, is not starring in your role. You need him to be a volume-efficient scorer and a low-turnover playmaker, and he hasn't been that.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.